The ongoing conflict in Iran has escalated dramatically, with U.S. military actions intensifying and costs reaching an alarming $25 billion. This has raised significant concerns about the implications for both the region and global stability. Here's a comprehensive breakdown of today's developments. On May 3, 2026, the ongoing conflict in Iran took a critical turn as U.S. military operations intensified. Just before noon local time, Pentagon officials confirmed that the cost of the war had reached approximately $25 billion. This figure was disclosed by acting Pentagon Comptroller Jules Hurst during a House Armed Services Committee hearing. Hurst informed lawmakers that the first week of military operations alone accounted for an estimated $11 billion. The revelation comes as the U.S. administration discusses a potential supplemental request for an additional $200 million to support ongoing military efforts. Hurst's testimony indicates that as of today, the situation remains dire, with Iran's nuclear program reportedly unchanged since the onset of hostilities. This latest development marks the conflict's 60-day milestone, prompting further scrutiny of the U.S. military strategy in the region. The conflict has roots in long-standing tensions between Iran and the United States, which date back decades. The U.S. has expressed concerns about Iran's nuclear ambitions and its influence in the Middle East. As military operations escalate, questions arise about the effectiveness of U.S. strategies and the potential for a protracted engagement. The financial burden of the conflict, now soaring, raises alarms among lawmakers regarding budgetary priorities and the impact on domestic programs. Adding to the gravity of the situation, President Donald Trump stated he believes he does not require congressional authorization for ongoing military actions, citing a purported ceasefire. This assertion raises concerns about constitutional authority and the implications of unilateral military decisions. Critics argue that bypassing Congress could set a dangerous precedent for future military engagements, igniting debates over executive power and accountability. Looking ahead, the administration faces mounting pressure to define clear objectives and exit strategies. As public opinion begins to shift, with increasing calls for transparency and accountability, the administration's approach may need to adapt. The potential for diplomatic negotiations remains uncertain, especially with Iran's nuclear program still intact. In the coming weeks, how the U.S. navigates this complex landscape will be crucial for regional stability and international relations. The evolving situation demands careful consideration of both military and diplomatic avenues as the U.S. seeks to balance its national security interests with the need for a sustainable resolution. The implications of the escalating Iran conflict are profound and far-reaching. Recently, the U.S. military has intensified its operations in the region, leading to a dramatic increase in military expenditure, totaling $25 billion. This significant financial commitment not only impacts the U.S. defense budget, but also raises concerns about potential funding shortages for critical domestic initiatives, such as infrastructure improvements and social welfare programs. The human cost of this conflict is equally alarming, with military actions displacing thousands of Iranian civilians. Reports indicate that over 100,000 people have fled their homes due to intensified military operations, creating a humanitarian crisis that requires urgent international attention. As the conflict escalates, U.S. military personnel are facing heightened risks, with casualties reportedly on the rise. This development has sparked intense debates within the U.S. about the long-term viability of military engagement in the region. Critics argue that continued military presence may lead to further entrenchment in a protracted conflict, mirroring past U.S. involvements in Afghanistan and Iraq. On a broader geopolitical scale, the conflict poses a significant threat to regional stability, potentially exacerbating tensions with other global powers. Nations like Russia and China have openly criticized U.S. actions, warning that such military interventions may lead to a more fragmented global landscape. The average person should be concerned about the ramifications of this situation, as escalating military conflicts can have cascading effects on international relations and economic stability. Potential outcomes include economic sanctions that could hamper trade, disruptions in global oil markets that would affect fuel prices, and the risk of military confrontations that could spiral out of control. Furthermore, the ethical implications of military intervention in foreign nations raise critical questions about the responsibilities of powerful countries to protect human rights while ensuring national security. Looking ahead, the situation in Iran could lead to a reevaluation of U.S. foreign policy, particularly regarding military intervention strategies. As the conflict unfolds, it is crucial for policymakers to consider the long-term implications of their actions. Engaging in diplomatic dialogue and seeking peaceful resolutions may prove to be the most effective approach to mitigate risks associated with further escalation. The upcoming months will be pivotal in determining whether the U.S. can effectively transition from a posture of military engagement to one focused on achieving lasting peace and stability in the region. The current crisis has roots that extend back several years, marked by increasing tensions between the U.S. and Iran. The conflict's origins can be traced to long-standing grievances, including Iran's nuclear ambitions and its support for various militant groups throughout the Middle East. In recent months, provocations from both sides escalated, including attacks on oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz and aggressive military posturing. Leading up to the current situation, the U.S. had imposed stringent sanctions on Iran, crippling its economy and heightening animosity toward American interests in the region. The decision by the Trump administration to withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal in 2018 served as a catalyst for renewed hostilities. This withdrawal not only dismantled years of diplomatic efforts, but also emboldened hardliners in Iran who viewed U.S. actions as evidence of imperialistic intentions. Previous military engagements in the Middle East, notably the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, have also influenced current strategies and perceptions on both sides. The motivations for U.S. involvement appear to be twofold. First, to curtail Iran's influence in the region, and second, to protect U.S. allies, notably Israel and Saudi Arabia, from perceived threats posed by Iranian military activities. The ongoing crisis threatens to destabilize the entire region further, with potential repercussions for global oil markets and international security alliances. As both nations remain mired in a cycle of retaliation, the outlook is grim. Economic instability in Iran could fuel further aggression, while U.S. interests risk becoming embroiled in a broader conflict. Continued diplomatic efforts will be essential to de-escalate tensions. However, with entrenched positions on both sides, finding common ground will be increasingly challenging. The coming months will be critical in determining the future of U.S.-Iran relations and regional stability. The trajectory of the Iran conflict is increasingly uncertain, with several potential outcomes looming on the horizon. Recent escalations have heightened tensions, particularly following Iran's aggressive military maneuvers, such as missile tests and naval drills, alongside the U.S. response involving troop deployments to the region. This military buildup signals a readiness to engage should provocations continue. One scenario involves the conflict escalating further, which could lead to a broader military engagement that draws in regional allies and adversaries, including Israel and Saudi Arabia. This scenario could materialize within the next few weeks if diplomatic efforts falter and hostilities continue to intensify. Historically, such conflicts have often spiraled out of control, with dire consequences for civilian populations and regional stability, as seen in past confrontations in the Middle East. Alternatively, there remains a possibility of a negotiated ceasefire, though this would necessitate significant concessions from both sides and the involvement of international mediators. Experts suggest that increasing pressure from global powers, including the European Union and Russia, could compel the U.S. to reconsider its military strategy in the region. The stakes are high, as miscalculations could lead to a protracted conflict that disrupts trade routes and affects global oil supplies. In the coming days, observers should closely monitor signs of military readiness and troop deployments, as well as any diplomatic talks that may signal a shift in strategy. The question remains, how will the U.S. balance its military objectives with the pressing need for diplomatic solutions in an increasingly volatile landscape? The impact of these decisions will resonate far beyond the immediate region, influencing global markets and international relations. Moving forward, The focus will be on whether diplomatic channels can successfully mitigate the conflict and restore stability to a region fraught with tension and uncertainty, as the potential for renewed dialogue remains a critical pathway to peace. As tensions rise, what path will the U.S. take regarding its military involvement in Iran? Share your thoughts and predictions in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth analyses.